So, another day of Keir Starmer's authoritarian clampdown on the Labour Party. Labour blocks sitting left-wing Mayor Jamie Driscoll from standing for new North East role. This person is an elected mayor who represents the Labour Party, yet he's been blocked for standing for candidate re-selection. Why would anyone do this? He seems to be universally liked, and the local area votes for him. How is Labour blocking an elected mayor from standing again not an assault on democracy? Now, Jamie is more on the left of the party, so I wonder if that has anything to do with it. Now, it took a couple of days for the apparent reasons as to why, not from a specific statement from the leadership, but in way of the mainstream media. That reason was because he shared a platform for disgraced filmmaker Ken Loach, citing that Loach had been expelled from the Labour Party due to anti-Semitism. Now we have a clip of Mayor Driscoll answering questions from the corporate media.
I mean, Labour say that was the reason that you were not allowed to run, because, as you say, you did share a platform with Ken Loach. You would say that it was just about the films that he made, but at the same time, this is somebody who's been, expelled from the party. And I do just want to read you some of the things that Ken Loach has said, because when he was asked if in a discussion about whether or not the Holocaust happened was unacceptable, he said that history is for all of us to discuss. The founding of the State of Israel, for example, based on ethnic cleansing, is there for us all to discuss. The role of Israel now is there for us all to discuss, so don't try and subvert that with false stories of anti-Semitism. That was when he was asked whether or not a discussion on whether the Holocaust happened would be acceptable. He's also said that the actions of the State of Israel make increasing anti-Semitism understandable. He said, if there has been a rise, I'm not surprised. In fact, it's perfectly understandable because Israel feeds feelings of anti-Semitism. I mean, surely you can see why sharing a platform with Ken Loach may be problematic.
If you want to ask Ken about his views, then do that. I'm not a spokesperson for Ken Loach. And let's be really clear that my combined authority under my leadership has adopted the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism and references the examples. I've been on Jewish labour movement training. I work very closely with the Jewish Leadership Council, visit the synagogues in my region. So this is an entirely separate issue about Ken Loach's issues. You need to take up with Ken Loach. I'm not his spokesperson. But he's produced that. There's only been 3 feature films set in the Northeast in a couple of decades. I, Daniel Blake, Sorry We Missed You, and now The Old Oak. So it is a big cultural significant issue for the Northeast. And to talk to him about films, I think, is entirely justified. I share platforms with all sorts of people. A couple of weeks ago, I was on a platform with Ben Hoochin. That does not mean I endorse the Tories' economic policies.
At the same time, though, so you don't regret sharing a platform with Ken Loach then?
I regret this entire episode now. The whole thing's blown up. And now Labour members are not getting the opportunity
but you
to
don't
choose.
You don't think it was wrong of you to share a platform with Ken Loach?
I think the issues of speaking to somebody about something entirely different from a controversial issue, my understanding is that he's made all sorts of clarifications, and he's not a Holocaust denier. I think he wrote a letter to the New York Times explicitly saying that the Holocaust was a real event, which of course it was. So honestly, Sophie, I think we've got to get the proportionality here. What the public want from their politicians is to get on with things and deliver things, and not to engage in culture wars, cancel culture, or anything like that. I actually think that's electorally damaging.
Now, I think that was one of the best answers I've heard when it comes to the framing of anti-Semitism. I loved how he didn't capitulate or apologise, but made clear that statements are from Ken Loach and Ken Loach only. I'm not here to try and defend Loach's character. I think some of the points are entirely correct when it comes to Israel. Israel is an apartheid state. That is a fact. So if Loach wants to frame it as ethnic cleansing, then to me, that's a debate to be had rather than just shutting him down. Now, maybe you think he's wrong for saying that, but what else is an apartheid state if it's not based on racism? Now, his other comments were apparently clarified, and I don't agree with everything Loach has said, but this isn't about him. This is guilt by association. Driscoll is an elected mayor, as I said. His job is to represent voters. I think he makes a brilliant point about how scarce working class films exist, something Loach specialises in. So, of course, that's an important discussion. If you're someone who says they represent the working class and a filmmaker has made it his career to do so, then where is the controversy in having a discussion with them? I really really worry about free speech and democracy when we can seemingly shut down huge swaths of political discussions based on guilt by association. Now, we also have to recognise that Loach may be seen as problematic, but he isn't some far-right fascist who shouldn't be platformed in any way, something the mainstream media love to do. Think of the sorts of discussions that are made on GB News, constantly pushing out hatred, especially against trans people, for example, using similar rhetoric that is literally used by neo-Nazis. Oh, well, that's fine. Who cares about them? I'm so frustrated with the mainstream media and their gatekeeping on racism. The corporate media have an appalling record of anti-Semitism, so sorry if I don't listen to the mainstream commentariat who don't give a shit about marginalised communities, but only wax lyrical about specifically anti-Semitism, because that's where the story is, and mainstream journos are like sheep. There's no critical analysis. It's just what everyone is talking about. But of course, this isn't the reason as to why Labour has blocked Driscoll. It's because he's slightly on the left, and it's an excuse to rid the party of anything that resembles left wing. Don't believe me? What about this? Huddersfield MP apologises for alleged anti-Semitic tweet. Barry Schumann tweeted about a run on silver shekels in apparent reference to a rumour about two high-profile Jewish businessmen missing out on peerages. The Huddersfield MP deleted the post and said he was deeply sorry that my clumsy tweet has caused offence. Now, this is someone who literally, in his own words, said something that was anti-Semitic, yet Jamie Driscoll hasn't. Yet he's blocked from standing because he talked with someone else who has been expelled. Double standards much. And talking about sharing platforms, this is Keir Starmer on BBC Question Time with Ken Loach. Now I can hear you say, well, BBC QT is an established debate panel, that's different. Is it? Well, because it's the BBC and it has a higher budget. There's nothing for Starmer to say, well, I won't be appearing on Question Time if Loach is there, and I'm sure the BBC would have dropped Loach in favour of Starmer, but I guess he didn't think about that. It just shows that the anti-Semitism narrative that began with Corbyn won't be going anywhere until left-wing politics in its entirety is completely eviscerated from political discourse.